And welcome back to Devlog. In the last part, I worked on my player movement scripting, and in this part, I'm working on the Pikmin AI and movement functions to work with the player for my Pikmin-like game. The first thing I did was design the level layout for the hub level. This means that I had to make a specific section in the hub area for everything that the player would need. This being level portals, hard level portals, level costumes that you can change into, the accessibility menu, and then the extras section. The easiest design for this for me was to make the hub area Pep-Pel's house, and then each of these sections different areas in her home. So the main room is the level portals and then level costumes throughout this room amongst her furniture. Below this is the basement, where the character can go to if they have unlocked the basement by beating one level. This will contain every hard mode variant of a level, and then the attic, which the player can jump up to, has accessibility options and also the fun areas. One element of the hub area design is the sewer or basement area, which contains the hard mode variant of levels. This was interesting to design for because I had to make a system where the player would have to have this area locked off to them if they have not completed any levels, because I felt like if the player could go down into the basement, it would maybe be a bit confusing for first-time players. If they go down there and notice a bunch of locked hard mode levels, it might be very confusing that they have order namings or things about unlocking them, so I wanted to completely obscure this area for first-time players so they cannot even access it. The way I did this was having it being in a sewer and then having grates covering over this area for as long as the player has not beaten one level. This is very simple. I just use the same logic for unlocking and not unlocking levels. If the player has beaten a level, this will have the enabled version. If the player has not beaten a level, this will have the disabled version. The disabled version is the version where the grates are upright and disabling the player from going into the sewer. The enabled version is the grates to the side. The player can fall down the now hole in the floor and they can access the sewer area, which has the hard mode levels, at this point one of them being unlocked for the player to access. I wanted to design a hub area instead of just a menu selection for levels because I have always found this particularly more engaging for a game. I felt like having just an area where you can run around and go to the next levels in the game is a lot more fun, at least for me, than a game where you just have a menu and you can choose from the menu to go to new levels. I understand that choosing from a menu is definitely more logical and makes more sense for players to be able to do, but having a hub area where you can move around and do things and maybe find certain unlockables or little secrets is just significantly more entertaining for me from a design perspective, and I think for the player from a player perspective, it gives them an opportunity to play around with the controls of Pep-Pel, to run around and do funny little things without actually being inside of a level. Also, and I cannot stress enough how much of a major design choice this emotion was, I do not like using Unity UI even slightly at all. I think coding systems with UI is annoying and bothersome, and I would rather make an entirely new level with its own mechanics that the player can run around and access levels in, rather than making it a UI system for the player to navigate levels. Next, I designed the sprite work for each of the areas. This is very simple. A lot of the areas use reused sprite work. The attic and the main room use the same wallpaper sprite work with a different wood layering over the front of it, or a brickwork layering on the living room version. The basement uses a stone wall, and the flooring is just different colorations of a wooden panel flooring. This is mostly supposed to be less emphasized in areas. The actual background of the house is not supposed to be very detailed or eye-catching because it's mostly being contained in the background, and I don't want it to confuse the player or get in the way of the visuals of the actual level. The main detail and design of a lot of the hub area is for the furniture and things of this nature in the design for the house, this being a lot larger than the actual player, and the reason for this is that Pep-Pel was originally a lot bigger before she was cursed into being a tiny little gremlin, and that is why furniture is so large. And also, and this is the main reason, also because jumping around large oversized furniture as tiny little Pep-Pel is really funny. The design for a lot of the furniture was vaguely fantasy, so a lot of it is made of wood, there is random potions and books and candles everywhere, and it's a big mess because Pep-Pel is a disgusting little urchin. In the sewer area, there is a bunch of pink goo on the wall, and the main sprite for the floor of the sewer area is a reused pipe from the trash trail. Could this be a lore hint that Pep-Pel is the source of the pollution in many areas of the game? Or did I just get lazy and not want to draw new assets? I'll never tell. Since the cellar is less spacious than the upstairs area, it is mostly just the levels. I didn't want to add a lot of overcrowded furniture to this because the player would have a harder time navigating this. There is large bottles in the background, but those are mostly a background element and mostly obscured by the actual visuals of each level. A lot of the levels are unfinished, obviously I've only made 3, but since they have their visuals in the hub area, their being there means that a lot of the detailing of furniture cannot be contained behind where a level actually is, because there will be visuals from the level in that position. That's why there's a giant tree in the house. Next we have the fact that the hub area was designed to look 3-dimensional. This was a really bad idea, this was a terrible idea, this was an awful idea, this was a really bad idea, I didn't want to do this, this was a really bad idea, I shouldn't have done this. I thought it would be a really funny idea to make the hub area more 3-dimensional, having it be an actual house. Since it's all one interior location, I did not think this would be too bothersome to design for. It was. A lot of the issues with this was to do with sprite layering and perspective issues when going from certain areas. The grate, for example, looked really awful when viewed at certain perspective angles when at certain points of the screen, so I had to really adapt a lot of the sprite working to really work well in a 3-dimensional environment. Now that I have done it, mind you, I think the design of the hub area being a 3-dimensional house looks pretty fun. It goes with the theming of Pep-Pel in that every single level has to have some weird visual distinction from every other level, including the hub level, which is 3-dimensional. I do quite enjoy the perspective of the hub area. I think the fact that it is incredibly cluttered, but it has this 3D effect means that it's actually a lot easier to navigate for the player because there is a heavier emphasis on perspective than in every other level, but it was, and I cannot stress this enough, very bothersome to design for. The next area that I am designing for Pep-Pel is also a 3-dimensional level. It is a house. Finally, we had the lighting of the actual hub area. The windows in the hub area generate lighting. The hub area exists in a black void. I use Unity lighting systems to make it pretty. One interesting aspect of the lighting of the hub area is that in the candle furniture, I actually have a lighting effect on this, as well as using the same sprite effect I used to make grass wobble around, make the fire sprite wobble around, so it actually has a very nice effect of the fire in Pep-Pel's candles to actually look lit and like it is emitting a light. And that's it for devlog. If you could maybe tell from past devlogs of yore, I have maybe slightly a little bit put off actually designing the hub area. I used a very basic cube and then I placed the level portals on the cube, and I used that as a hub area in development log videos for maybe longer than I should have. So now that I actually have a hub area to work in and oh no. Now that I actually have a hub area to work in and platform around, I think it really makes the game work a whole lot better and look a whole lot better, and the less I can use the default Unity 3D Cube grid map, the better. In the next part, I'll be talking about Pep-Pel's cool and dark and twisted backstory. Ooh, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen?